An assassination of Putin is being planned in Budapest. Russian propagandists are having a panic attack. There will be no negotiations. The meeting between Putin and Trump in Budapest has been postponed. The Russian dictator is entertaining himself with strippers and models. Shocking details about Putin's harem. Pokrovsk is semi-encircled. The Russian army has launched a powerful attack, throwing all its reserves into battle. An unprecedented attack on the Dzhankoy airfield in Crimea. Air defense on the peninsula has been destroyed. Catastrophe in Donetsk. The city is dying without water and a rebellion is brewing there. Belarusian dictator Lukashenko has betrayed Putin and is negotiating with the West. Meanwhile, Ukraine has set up mass production of drones that will change the course of the war. Hello, my name is Anastasia Dimitrovskaya. Right now, the main news. But first, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose each other on YouTube. The meeting between US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, which was supposed to take place this week, has been postponed for unknown reasons. CNN reports that the cancellation of the Rubio-Lavrov meeting casts doubt on the possibility of a Trump-Putin summit. Previously, October 23rd was mentioned as a possible date for the Rubio-Lavrov meeting. They were supposed to prepare a new face-to-face meeting between Trump and Putin in Budapest. According to one of CNN's sources, the reason for the cancellation was the vastly different views Rubio and Lavrov have on ending the Russia-Ukraine war.
According to one of the sources, the conversation between Rubio and Lavrov showed that the Russians have not really changed their maximalist demands. Because of this, Rubio is unlikely to recommend moving forward with plans for a Trump-Putin meeting. Sources from the publication believe that the US Secretary of State will likely speak with Lavrov again this week.
However, despite the fact that the meeting seems unlikely today, it is still not being ruled out. For example, Bulgaria has stated that it will allow Putin's plane to fly over its territory if the meeting in Budapest does take place. Meanwhile, Polish Deputy Prime Minister Radosław Sikorski said that Poland could forcibly land Putin's plane to arrest him if he flies over the country on his way to a potential meeting with Trump.
We cannot guarantee that an independent Polish court would not order the government to land such a hypothetical plane in order to hand the suspect over to the Hague court, said the Polish foreign minister.
And what do you think? What are the chances of a meeting between Trump and Putin? And in your opinion, should we expect anything constructive if this meeting does take place? The United Kingdom is preparing to assassinate Putin in Budapest. This is what Russian officials and propagandists are claiming. This exact statement was made by former Russian intelligence officer Andrei Bezrukov on state television. He added that this will definitely happen if Putin goes to meet with Donald Trump.
The United Kingdom might carry out a completely treacherous operation, since the entire mentality of the British is structured in such a way that if Putin is gone, then there are no problems, and Russia will fall apart.
Reacting to Bezrukov's statement, propagandist Solovyov suggested holding negotiations in the United Arab Emirates and added that Putin is so brave that he might risk going to Hungary despite the warnings. What do you think? Is this just another Kremlin fabrication, or is there no smoke without fire? Putin allegedly has a secret harem and hidden wealth. This is reported by Clash Report, citing the book The Tsar Himself, How Vladimir Putin Fooled Us All. See you now, The authors claim that Putin kept women whom he rewarded with luxurious assets, including in particular former cleaning lady Svetlana Krivonogik, who is linked to a fortune of £78 million, and gymnast Alina Kabaeva, who is allegedly the mother of 2 of Putin's children. In fact, the authors of this book are the founders of the Russian investigative outlet Prokt, Roman Baranin and Mikhail Rubin. They are currently living in exile. The investigators themselves describe the book as a kind of guide to the Putin era. In addition, they present a number of juicy facts about the dictator's personal life and describe Putin's early encounters with strippers and models. Well, am I surprised? Honestly, not in the slightest. There's a blackout in Chernihiv, no water, no electricity. This is the result of a Russian attack during the night. Moreover, energy workers couldn't begin restoration work during the day because of the ongoing drone attacks. The occupiers deliberately launched drones that continuously circle over the damaged sites, making it impossible to safely carry out repairs and intentionally prolonging the humanitarian crisis. This was stated by the Ministry of Energy. Also, last night the enemy attacked Kharkiv with glide bombs. It is known that as a result of this attack, 10 people were injured and residential buildings as well as critical infrastructure were damaged. Reading the comments under previous episodes, I see that many of our viewers are from Kazakhstan, Moldova, Europe, and even the States. We Ukrainians are very grateful to you for your support and proud that we have such a reasonable audience. Write in the comments under this episode which country you're watching us from and whether people there support our fight against the empire of evil. I always enjoy reading your comments. And we continue because the most interesting part is still ahead. Last night it was loud in Russia's Rostov region.
There it is. It's right above us. Can you believe it?
No way. Whoa.
The Russians were filming everything on their phones.
What's that? Mom? Mom!
And some people even started panicking, shouting that this isn't the Kremlin and that they should be hitting the Kremlin.
You didn't do your job properly at all.
Guys, the Kremlin isn't actually here. You need to hit the right Kremlin. You got the coordinates mixed up.
Well, as they say, 100% understanding, 0% judgment. The attack by Ukrainian drones on the Russian Orenburg gas processing plant forced neighboring Kazakhstan to cut production at its Karachaganak oil and gas condensate field by 25 to 30%. Reuters reports this, citing industry sources.
Kazakhstan's Ministry of Energy reported on Sunday that the Orenburg gas processing plant, one of the largest in the world, was forced to suspend receiving gas from Kazakhstan after the attack.
Meanwhile, Ukraine confirmed that the strike hit a gas processing plant in the Orenburg region, which is located about 1,700 kilometers from the Russian-Ukrainian border, as well as an oil refinery in the Samara region.
According to two sources who spoke on condition of anonymity due to the sensitivity of the situation, production at Karachaganak on Monday dropped to 25,000 metric tons, or 196,500 barrels per day, 28,000 metric tons, compared to the usual level of 35 to 35,500 tons. They said that Orenburg, which is controlled by the gas producer Gazprom, may open a new tab and possibly resume part of the gas supplies from Karachaganak on Monday. However, they declined to say when the normal level of supplies would be restored.
Journalists also report that, as a result of the attack, the Novokuybishevsk oil refinery has suspended operations.
According to sources at the refinery, the primary oil processing unit CDU-11, with a capacity of 18,900 tons per day, or about 138,540 barrels per day, was shut down. They also reported that another main unit, CDU-9, had already been shut down by Sunday. Primary oil processing at the refinery had previously been suspended after the plant was attacked by drones last month. Sources said that the plant may resume production in early November.
For my part, I never tire of pointing out that the so-called sanctions of Ukrainian drones against Russian refineries are incredibly effective. And now about the situation at the front. Our military reports a difficult situation in Kupiansk and Pokrovsk. There, the enemy has doubled the number of assault attacks compared to September. Also, in some directions, the occupiers have started using glide bombs with a long range.
Things are heating up. They've started to gradually use rocket-assisted glide bombs, which cover a combat radius of over 100 kilometers.
However, our defense forces are not letting the occupiers rest easy either. Here is footage of GUR fighters striking a new Russian radar station in occupied Crimea. The newest Russian Valday system, which was hit at the Dzhankoy airfield, is designed to detect and counter small drones. Yes, Ukrainians are preparing an unpleasant surprise for the Russians. Ukraine has developed and started mass production of the Shahed killer, General Chernihiv Alat. In testing, the general reached 309 kilometers per hour. So the hunt for Russian drones will become even more successful. This battle is not over yet, but it has already gone down in the history of the Ukrainian-Russian war as one of the bloodiest and most remarkable. Pokrovsk is a symbol of Donbass's resilience and a city where the Russians tried everything they could, but still failed to capture it. Our journalists will tell you how the city is living now.
The fighting for Pokrovsk has been going on for over a year. During this time, the occupying army has tried everything, but still hasn't taken the city, which is just a stone's throw from the southern border of Donetsk region. The Pokrovsk direction is a priority for Putin. He has transferred 120,000 soldiers of his occupying army here.
In the Pokrovsk direction, the occupiers have changed their tactics of warfare. We're talking about the use of mechanized columns and assaults on the positions of Ukraine's defense forces. Such tactics have not been observed for the past several months, up to half a year. It is noteworthy that the change in tactics is primarily related to the change in weather conditions. In other words, the occupiers are counting on the rainy autumn weather to significantly reduce the activity of Ukrainian FPV drones.
Since August of this year, Ukraine's defense forces have not only managed to protect Pokrovsk and the nearby settlements, Ukrainian defenders have liberated almost 183 square kilometers of territory and cleared another 230 square kilometers of enemy presence.
The occupiers are trying to break through directly towards Dobropilya and accordingly in the direction of the administrative border with Dnipropetrovsk region. But I want to emphasize once again, both Mirnorad and Dobropilya, as well as Pokrovsk, are major industrial centers. And therefore, to say that in the near historical future, the occupiers will be able to take full control of the Pokrovsk agglomeration. At this moment, there is no basis for such claims.
In addition, Ukrainian fighters have neutralized at least 13,945 Russian invaders, of whom 8,402 are irrecoverable losses, 5,419 are wounded, and 124 are prisoners. The occupiers have also lost nearly 1,300 pieces of equipment and weaponry.
In other words, we are talking about the use of the so-called no price is too high tactic. The occupiers are well aware that out of all the armored vehicles, which include not only tanks but also IFVs and APCs, at most only 20% will actually reach the positions of Ukraine's defense forces. And accordingly, the same proportion of troops, that is manpower. The occupiers are using this tactic primarily to achieve political objectives. It's not even about the military aspect. The Russian dictator needs to demonstrate supposed tactical successes of the occupying army to the United States before the start of negotiations in Hungary.
Despite losses and a shortage of personnel, a Russian sabotage and reconnaissance group managed to infiltrate the center of Pokrovsk in recent days. Local social media channels report that during their advance, the Russians violated international humanitarian law and killed civilians in the city. This happened in the area of the railway station. One woman was miraculously saved by a local resident. Unfortunately, the occupiers are increasingly using the residents of Pokrovsk as human shields or simply shooting unarmed people right on the streets of their own city. Nevertheless, Ukrainians are bravely holding the line and destroying the enemy even as they approach Pokrovsk. In this video, the defenders of Pokrovsk used a single FPV drone to neutralize 10 occupiers at once, who were moving at night in a truck near Selidov. The enemy continues to target weak spots and probe Ukrainian defenses in Danilivgrad, Pokrovsk district. A small group of occupiers broke into the city but was immediately destroyed by the Ukrainian armed forces soldiers.
The difficulty in neutralizing Russian sabotage groups lies in the fact that they use A, urban buildings, B, the local population as a human shield. This is what creates additional problems for the Ukrainian defense forces when neutralizing Russian assault troops. But it should be noted that according to the Russian side itself, the average life expectancy of a Russian assault trooper is about 12 days.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is convinced that Russia is not interested in developing the occupied areas of Donbas and will use the captured territories only for showy actions under the slogan, "We won the war." In addition, the commander-in-chief stated that Ukraine wants to end the war in a just and reliable way.
I never cease to admire the courage and heroism of Ukrainian soldiers. They are holding the front and standing up to a huge horde that vastly outnumbers them. That's why I urge you to support the armed forces of Ukraine, and if you can't do so financially, write them words of encouragement in the comments. I know they are watching us. Temporarily occupied Donetsk is barely surviving without water. This is no longer just a so-called water crisis, but a humanitarian catastrophe, as analyzed by our colleagues from Donbas News.
In occupied Makivka in the Kalininsky district, long lines formed on Sunday. Local residents say that water is delivered only once every 4 days, a single tank for the entire densely populated district.
Meanwhile, the Monakovsky quarry, once a popular recreation spot for Donetsk residents, is now quickly turning into a dried-up pit. And after the occupation authorities began using it as a water source for the Donetsk-Makivka agglomeration, the water level in the quarry dropped catastrophically. And the city of Kartsysk has been almost entirely without water for the third month now. The nearby reservoir has become critically shallow. And all these incidents have happened just in the month of October. And as you can imagine, the situation is getting worse every day. Local children are recording video appeals to Putin, and Z-bloggers are already at a loss for words to downplay the problem, which is as dire as it really is. Ukrainian strike drones are capable of turning the tide of the war. See for yourself. In one of the latest massive Russian air attacks on Ukraine, cheap domestic drones intercepted and destroyed about 150 targets. Let's take a look at how Ukraine will win the war thanks to low-cost garage-made technologies.
At speeds of over 300 kilometers per hour, that's the performance of the Ukrainian interceptor drone Sting. The main purpose of this little guy is to destroy Russian Shaheds, which the Kremlin is unleashing on Ukraine by the hundreds. The Sting is a completely Ukrainian military industry product. Its cost is about $2,500, which is several times cheaper than the Russian Shaheds. This is exactly what makes this interceptor drone indispensable for Ukraine's air defense. Just a year ago, this method of shooting down Shaheds was unrealistic. Now everything has changed dramatically.
What once seemed laughable has turned into an inexpensive and crucial element of Ukraine's defense. While Russia bombards its cities with increasingly powerful waves of explosive drones, Ukraine is more and more often using cheap interceptors to stop them. This weapon shot down 150 attack drones during a recent bombardment. Now Ukraine aims to produce 1,000 interceptors a day.
One of the world's leading news outlets, Business Insider, writes that Sting-type interceptor drones, which Ukraine is now actively producing, could turn the tide of the war as they cost much less than Shaheds.
There has always been and still is a search for cheap means to destroy the enemy's strike capabilities in the form of drones and missiles. And these interceptor drones, whose overall cost is actually approximately 10 times less than that of the strike drone that is attacking a civilian or military target, have, as a result, led to the gradual scaling up and broader implementation of such solutions.
Since the beginning of 2024, Ukrainian drone engineers have been actively converting quadcopters into drones capable of destroying Shaheds.
The design of interceptor drones is rapidly evolving. For example, the Sting is equipped with a warhead that accelerates to 340 kilometers per hour using 4 rotating blades. This sensor-guided interceptor, produced by the Ukrainian drone manufacturer Wild Hornets, resembles a handheld rocket and is small enough to fit in a travel bag. Other interceptors look like small gliders. The crews launching them need to react instantly to threats. The pilot of the Sting said that his team heads out at night based on intelligence group tips, having only 10 minutes to intercept approaching Russian drones before they move out of range.
The improvement of interceptor drones never stops, not even for a minute. Success rates vary from 30% for some interceptors to 80 or even 90%. Success depends on a large number of factors: the type of targets, the timing of the interception, the pilot's skills, and many others. Interest in and demand for interceptors has surged sharply not only in Ukraine, but also among NATO countries after the first Russian drones crossed the Polish border. Especially since the Kremlin continues to invest huge sums in the development and production of Shahed strike drones. Ukraine and NATO countries want to have an effective and, most importantly, inexpensive means of countering them.
We are negotiating with quite large leaders in certain segments worldwide, companies that are interested in purchasing our drones. Some of the technologies, for example, we have adopted from foreign partners we worked with, and they have been integrated into our solutions. And there is serious interest because we have the largest, unfortunately for us, but fortunately for the world and for those who manufacture weapons, the largest testing ground for military technologies in the world.
During one of the latest attacks on Ukraine, Russia launched almost 800 aerial targets. And according to Western intelligence estimates, the Kremlin may soon launch up to 2,000 Shaheds of various modifications. Moreover, in Russia, the Shahed is being modernized, and in the future, it may be able to reach speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour. So the appearance of Ukrainian interceptor drones should simplify and make air defense operations more effective. Especially since, from a financial standpoint, Ukrainian interceptors are cost-effective to use. And victory in war always comes down to economically sound decisions.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Lukashenko is twisting and turning like a snake on a frying pan, trying to please both the West and Moscow. Sanctions are hitting the Belarusian economy hard, but the potato Führer is also panically afraid of Putin. Most recently, Lukashenko announced his readiness to join negotiations with Kyiv to end the war. And this comes right after his recent threats about the possible use of Russian nuclear weapons. So what should we expect from the bipolar behavior of the Belarusian dictator?
There has been some positive momentum in the trend of resuming the Belarusian-American dialogue. It's time to say something about this.
Lukashenko is desperately trying to sit on two chairs at once.
Vladimir Zelensky needs to calm down. There's a good offer on the table.
Long considered one of Putin's most loyal allies, he has suddenly begun to show openness to contacts with the US.
Yes, interesting cufflinks with an image of the White House. But I'll try not to be in anyone's debt.
Journalists write that he is looking for a way out of the isolation Putin dragged him into, which is why he has stepped up contacts with the European Union. Washington, despite the European Union, began engaging with Belarus, sending several delegations to Minsk this year.
And everything should be fair, just as we once agreed with the Americans.
Minsk took advantage of the window of opportunity that had opened. Lukashenko eagerly tried to regain at least some trust from the Americans. The loyal comrade began to praise Trump.
Trump deserved that Nobel Prize. It should have been given to him. Trump did a lot for peace.
In September, he had a phone conversation with Donald Trump and even called him a highly respected leader. Realizing that things had started to move, the Belarusian dictator hopes to achieve at least a partial lifting of Western sanctions.
He is of one mind with the president of Iran that sanctions are a time of opportunity. For us, it is very important not to waste this time.
Lukashenko understands that Iran and Africa are not much help and Putin's money is running out. Lukashenko has signaled that he is also ready to talk with Volodymyr Zelensky.
Our position is that it is necessary to meet, and even in this most difficult situation, to find consensus. This work is also being carried out. Of course, much here depends on the Ukrainian side. Our president is doing everything possible to stabilize the situation in the region.
In recent weeks, Belarusian diplomats have reportedly been actively holding a series of meetings with European representatives. In Brussels, this gesture was seen as an attempt by Lukashenko to climb out of the sanctions pit in order to return to international trade.
Let's try to work out a global deal, as Mr. Trump likes to do. A big deal, as he calls it.
Journalists report that it is Yuri Ambrazevich, appointed as Belarus's ambassador to the Vatican, who is actually coordinating Minsk's contacts with Western Europe. He conveyed a message to European diplomats that Belarus is seeking to break its political isolation and is allegedly ready to play the role of mediator between Russia and Ukraine.
That is why, for us, a sovereign and independent Ukraine is a major and crucial issue. It should be peaceful, not create any problems or threats for anyone, and develop as an independent state. We support this, we are for peace, and in this regard, we are ready to work. As Russia's closest ally, Belarus is assigned, as I have already said, a certain role in resolving the Ukrainian crisis and in building the architecture of regional security. The Americans have noticed us in this process.
Europe is reacting cautiously to the convulsions of the Belarusian Lukashenko, knowing that the mustachioed one likes to play a double game.
But action must be taken urgently, because regardless of everything, Russia is advancing on the front. I say this responsibly as I observe it practically every day. And this could lead to the disappearance of Ukraine as a state.
European diplomats admit that Minsk is trying to demonstrate independence from Moscow. But most believe that Lukashenko does not actually have real independence. Not long ago, the Belarusian authorities once again arrested several opposition members and at the same time held joint military exercises with Russia.
We are not trying to conquer anyone because we wouldn't be able to conquer anyone. We understand this perfectly well. We are surrounded by powerful states. What more is there to say? But we are always ready to inflict unacceptable damage if anyone sets foot on our land.
Or, for show, they invited 20 or 25 supposedly American soldiers to the West.
Thank you. Thank you. The very best seats for you, and may you meet only the kindest new people.
While telling the US about his peaceful intentions, Lukashenko plays along with Putin, for example, by proposing to build a nuclear power plant in eastern Belarus to supply electricity to the Ukrainian territories temporarily occupied by the Kremlin.
If a decision is made, we will immediately start building a new power unit or a new plant, if such a need arises in Western Russia and in the liberated regions. The government will calculate this.
The issue of funding does not come into question at all in this context.
Lukashenko, like a seasoned card sharp, flirts with the West without letting go of the Kremlin's feeding hand.
You said that the Americans asked you to pass a message to Moscow. Is there something like that this time?
Well, tomorrow I will pass on all the messages and notes to him.
Such maneuvers by Minsk, trying to please both sides, usually end with one of the chairs breaking anyway.
Hostilities must cease immediately, and the current line of contact should become the starting point for negotiations. In fact, this is stated in the joint declaration by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders.
Russia's tactic of dragging out the process time and again shows that Ukraine is the only country truly committed to peace. We can all see that Putin continues to choose violence and destruction. That is why we clearly understand that Ukraine must hold the strongest possible position before, during, and after any ceasefire. We must increase pressure on Russia's economy and defense industry until Putin is ready for peace. We are developing measures to utilize the full value of Russia's frozen sovereign assets so that Ukraine receives the necessary resources.
Earlier, I would like to remind you that US President Donald Trump also spoke about the need to cease hostilities and that the current line of contact should serve as the starting point for negotiations. But in the Kremlin, both Trump's statement, Zelensky's statement, and those of the Europeans were met with their usual response.
A ceasefire right now would mean only one thing, that a vast part of Ukraine would remain under the control of the Nazi regime. In that part of Ukraine, it would be the only place on earth where an entire language is legally banned, not to mention that it is an official UN language and the language spoken by the majority of the population, Lavrov told journalists after talks with the Ethiopian foreign minister.
Do you think Trump's so-called patience with Putin will finally run out? Or can the bunker dweller keep stringing the US along with empty promises without fear of consequences? What do you think of our news? Let us know what we should change to become better. It's very important to us and we will definitely take your feedback into account. In the meantime, give this video a like to support what we do. And be sure to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss our upcoming episodes. See you soon.